English poet and dramatist of the Elizabethan and early Jacobean period, William Shakespeare is the most widely known author in all of English literature. To read William Shakespeare is to become lost in his unprecedentedly rich and inventive use of the English language. I decided to present this selection on the quality of mercy from The Merchant of Venice because I feel these are the most profound and practical 14 lines ever written on this human attribute. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptered sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself, and earthly power doth then show like as God's, when mercy seasons justice. Living with a spirit of mercy and putting it to use each day is the way to tame our more base and primitive instincts while nurturing love and compassion. When we are hurt by others, our first impulse is usually to get even. Revenge, rather than mercy, is what our more savage side urges. Yet Shakespeare defines this quality of mercy, which he equates as an attribute of God. As it droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath, it is twice blessed. The first blessing of mercy or compassion is on you, the giver. This message summarizes much of the wisdom that the psychological literature has to offer. That is, be compassionate with yourself. Do not judge yourself harshly when you make a mistake or fail to live up to some standard. Be of such a mind that you can detach from the misconduct or failure and be gentle and loving with yourself. Forgive yourself for being so human as to have wandered around in your darker corners and emerged embarrassed or disappointed with your behavior. Give yourself mercy, a quality that Shakespeare says becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. And so it becomes you as well. When you take the first blessing of mercy and apply it to yourself, you then open to this potential of offering this quality to him that takes. If you are unable to give yourself authentic compassion, you will never be able to give it to another, any more than you can give love to another if you do not love yourself, or give money to the poor if you have none. This notion of giving mercy away is applicable in all of your relationships, in all areas of your life. Offering compassion to those who have harmed or disappointed you is not a case for being a victim. It is instead a way of saying, I understand, I care, I forgive, but I still do not like it, and I will not tolerate being treated this way or having you think it is acceptable. The difference is not needing to exact revenge or to prove one's superiority. With mercy in your heart, you will find yourself much less distracted and disheartened by the evil behaviors that you see and read about almost every day. You will be able to send the offenders love and not become obsessed with anger, hatred, and eventually the desire for revenge. Put the ideas of this passage by one of the world's greatest wordsmiths into your life by practicing the following. 1. Give yourself the compassion you deserve for any and all past actions. Stop judging yourself so harshly. All of those errors and wrong actions were necessary for you to get beyond that place in your life. Be kind to yourself and eliminate any ill feelings you harbor toward yourself. 2. Once you have stated how you feel and justice has been seen, then let go. Let go now. Don't hold on to grudges and use constant reminders to keep others in a state of guilt while maintaining your own dissonance as well. Let it go. And 3, turn your most troublesome disturbances over to God. Simply say, Dear God, I find it so extremely difficult to give mercy in this situation, and I'm turning it over to you completely. I know you will guide me in acting in the most merciful and humane way. This action will free you from your own immobilization and anger and help you to see the saint in the sinner who have just been exchanging notes with each other. Pythagoras once wrote, Learn to be silent. Let your quiet mind listen and absorb. And during the 1600s, Blaise Pascal wrote these words, All man's miseries derive from not being able to sit quietly in a room, alone, This is the only piece in this collection of great contributors in which I have elected to highlight two writers on the same subject. I've selected two men whose lives were separated by over 2 millennia, both of whom in their own times were considered to be the most knowledgeable in the rational fields of mathematics and science. Pythagoras, whose writings influenced the thought of Plato and Aristotle, was a major contributor to the development of both mathematics and Western rational philosophy. Blaise Pascal, a famous French mathematician, physicist, and religious philosopher who lived 22 centuries after Pythagoras, is considered to be one of the original scientific minds. He is responsible for inventing the syringe, the hydraulic press, and the first digital calculator. Keeping in mind the left-brain scientific leanings of these two scientists, listen again to their two quotes. Pascal: "All man's miseries derive from not being able to sit quietly in a room, alone." Pythagoras: "Learn to be silent. Let your quiet mind listen and absorb." They both speak to the importance of silence and the value of meditation in your life, whether you are an accountant or an avatar. They send us a valuable message about a way of being in life that is not popularly encouraged in our culture. This is that there is tremendous value in creating alone time in your life that is spent in silence. If you want to shed your miseries, learn to silently sit in a room alone and meditate. It has been estimated that the average person has 60,000 separate thoughts each and every day. The problem with this is that we have the same 60,000 thoughts today that we had yesterday, and will repeat them again tomorrow. Learning to be quiet and meditate involves figuring out a way to enter the spaces between your thoughts, or the gap, as I call it. In this silent, empty space between your thoughts, you can find a sense of total peace in a realm that is ordinarily unknowable. Here, any illusion of your separateness is shattered. Most of us have minds that race full speed day and night. Our thoughts are a hodgepodge of continuous dialogue about schedules, money worries, sexual fantasies, grocery lists, drapery problems, concerns about the children, vacation plans, and on like a merry-go-round that never stops. Those 60,000 thoughts are usually about ordinary daily activities and create a mental pattern which leaves no space for silence. This pattern reinforces our cultural belief that all gaps in conversation need to be filled quickly. For many, silence represents an embarrassment and a social defect. Therefore, we learn to jump in to fill these spaces, regardless of whether our filler has any substance or not. Silent periods in a car or at a dinner are perceived as awkward moments, and good conversationalists know how to get those spaces occupied with some kind of noise. And so it is with ourselves as well. We have no training in silence, and we see it as unwieldy and confusing. Thus we keep the inner dialogue going just like the outer. Yet it is in that silent place where our ancient teacher Pythagoras tells us to let our quiet mind listen and absorb, that confusion will disappear and enlightened guidance will come to us. But meditation also affects the quality of our non-silent activities. The daily practice of meditation is the one single thing in my life that gives me a greater sense of well-being, increased energy, higher productivity, at a more conscious level, more satisfying relationships, and a closer connection to God. The mind is like a pond. On the surface you see all of the disturbances, yet the surface is only a fraction of the pond. It is in the depth below the surface, where there is stillness, that you will come to know the true essence of the pond, as well as your own mind. By going below the surface, you come to the spaces between your thoughts, where you are able to enter the gap. The gap is total emptiness, or silence. These two pioneering scientists, who are still quoted today in university courses, were studying the nature of the universe. They struggled with the mysteries of energy and pressure and mathematics and space and time and universal truth. Their message to all of us here is quite simple. If you want to understand the universe, or your own personal universe, then be quiet and face your fear of sitting in a room alone and going deep within the layers of your own mind. It is the space between the notes that makes the music. Without that emptiness, that silence in between, there is no music, only a noise. You too are silent, empty space at your center, surrounded by form. To break through that form and discover your very creative nature that is in the center, you must take the time to become silent each day and enter that rapturous space between your thoughts. No amount of my talking about the value of daily meditation will ever convince you. You will never know the value of this practice unless you make the commitment to do it.
And what I'd like to do now is share with you what I think of as the essence of getting out of our personal history. You know, Alan Watts described it like this. He said, your life is like a boat, and it's heading up the river at 40 knots. And you're standing on the stern of the boat, looking down as the boat's heading in this direction, and you're looking at the water, and what you see before you is a wake. And he said, you have to ask yourself these three questions about the wake. The first question, what is the wake? And the wake that you're observing is just a trail that is left behind. That's what it is. It's just a trail that is left behind, if you can see that metaphor. And that's your life. And everything that's ever happened to you up until this moment, it's a wake. And the second thing is, what's driving the boat? That's the second question. That is, what's making your life go in this direction? And the answer to what's driving the boat is the present moment energy that's being generated by the engine. And nothing more. That's the only thing that makes the boat go. Now here's the most important question to ask yourself. Is it possible for the wake to drive the boat? That is, can a trail that is left behind make a boat go in this direction? And of course the answer to that is, it's impossible. Can't happen. And most of us, including those of us who are stuck in disease, are believing that the wake is what's causing me to be sick today, or causing this relationship to not work. And this woman whose husband had left her and who had to raise these children and had lived with all of these thoughts of how this shouldn't have happened and what a bastard he was and how wrong that was and so on, was living back here in the wake, believing that all of this stuff that was back here was causing her to be depressed, to be sick, to be unhappy, to be all of the things that she was, when in fact it's just the way that she was processing that. It's the present moment energy that is generated by our thoughts that creates what it is that we are experiencing now. And if you can get out of the wake, or if you can teach your patients to get out of the wake, how many patients had come to you and told you that I've had back trouble my whole life? It runs in our family. My grandfather had it, my great-grandfather had it, my grandmother, of course I'm going to have it. And they're all in the wake. And they're all anticipating and expecting, and they're literally living this stuff that's back here, when in fact, they have a whole new set of options available to them if you can move into the present moment, if you can move into the now, and redirect the energy that you have into this moment. This is the place where you have an awareness within you that says, I don't go back there any longer. What you think of me is none of my business. I am free from allowing myself to become immobilized or upset or in any way incapacitated on the basis of what is going on outside of me or how other people conduct themselves. I am in charge of my emotional life. I live at bliss.
My feelings come from my thoughts. My emotions, my angers, my hatreds, my love, my positive emotions, my negative emotions are all preceded by thoughts. They're the result of thoughts. They're the physiological reactions to thoughts. And emotions, which are very vital and very important to each one of us, can in fact be controlled by our thoughts in positive ways. I'm not an anti-emotion person. I'm not someone who believes that you shouldn't be emotional. I'm saying your emotions should never be immobilizing. They should never be defended as something that you use to keep yourself from being all that you can be, or explaining it all away because I'm just this kind of person. I've always been this way. I can't help it. That's my nature. That's the kind of person I am. You are the kind of person you have chosen to be as a result of how you use what you are, the pureness of your thought. We're learning through biochemical exploration and engineering.
They're enzymes in the brain that release different endorphins into your brain as a result of the way that you think. A person who thinks a positive thought is not just saying, oh, goody, I'm just thinking positive thoughts. They are affecting the chemistry of their body. And when you look at things like schizophrenia and some of the least understood of the mental illnesses, we say, yes, there's chemical imbalances there. And the scientists all get together and say, yeah, it's chemistry. What are you talking about all this thinking stuff? If we can alter the chemistry, we can alter the disease. Of course, it's true. I buy it 100%, but it's only 50% of the battle. What causes the chemistry to change in a human being? What causes an ulcer? Isn't that a chemical change brought about as a result of thinking? Isn't that what it is? Well, the same thing is true of a mental illness. Yes, the chemistry is different, but believe that you control your chemistry. It's your chemistry. You carry it around. It's yours. And every patient who I've ever worked with in the really severely disturbed realm still must understand that they're doing this to themselves. Yes, your chemistry is unbalanced, but don't believe that we're just going to put you on lithium, or we're just going to put you on this drug, and the drug is going to, for the rest of your life, do it. You've got to believe that you can, in fact, alter any chemistry within you through the way that you think. What do you think blood pressure going up when you're under pressure is about? It's a chemical change brought about through thought.
Like magnetism, there is a force that has many characteristics that are quite impossible to detect with our physical senses. We call this force energy. Energy is in all things in our universe and has an impact upon objects around it with something that we describe as the power of attraction. In magnetic fields, we can easily see it at work, yet we're unable to detect the formless energy with our sensory apparatus. The force is there, attracting and repelling, and it is everywhere on our planet. If it is everywhere, then it is also within us. It seems unlikely that our senses will inform us any better than they help us comprehend how a magnetic pole works. We can see the results, but the force itself is always elusive and in motion. We can use this universal energy to bring to us objects of our desire because the same energy that is in what we desire is also in us, and vice versa. It is simply a matter of alignment and will that allows us to tap into this force. Bringing things into the physical world is a process that we call creation. What we create involves the use of the same power that is in all that is created. It is only a matter of degree. There's absolutely no difference in the power that brings something from the world of waves into the world of particles and the power that brings your thoughts or mental pictures into form. The world of spirit from which all matter derives and the world of matter comprise one harmonious whole. They are separate but always together, just like the peak of the wave and its base, separate but forming an inseparable whole. Think of manifesting as nothing more than transforming waves of possibility into particles of reality. The transforming process requires energy. This energy is invisible but is always in everything, including us. Your mental pictures are related to this power of attraction. There is a power within you that allows you to form a thought or a picture. This mental picturing power is the energy of attraction that is in all creative processes. It is different in degree, but nevertheless identical with the power of attraction. This power is the very substance of life. You can't see, touch, or hear this power, but it is within you. In using this power, you are not in any way attempting to change or interfere with the laws of nature. You are fulfilling the laws. This undifferentiated power is the basis for the mysterious attraction that draws your desires to you. Think of yourself as a way that God has of particularizing. Then see your ability to formulate mental pictures as the divine creative power energizing through you. Can you see that the same creative energy that particularizes as yourself is what you use to manifest your desires? This power thrives on happiness, love, joy, contentment, and peace. The more blissful and loving you are, the more the divine spirit particularizes within you and the more godlike you become. It is through your thoughts, or how you use your power to create a thought, that all creative energy is attracted to you. If your mental pictures are of being surrounded by things and conditions that you desire, and they are rooted in joy and faith, your creative thoughts will attract these surroundings and conditions into your life. The power to even have a thought is a divine power. With this recognition of its sacredness, you form a vision or a mental picture. Finally, you hold it lovingly in place with the inner knowledge that the God force that brought everything in the universe into existence also created you. The form that this energy will take will be controlled and directed by your will or your mental picturing. It is waiting to take any direction you decide. The most important thing to remember as you practice mental picturing for the purposes of manifesting your desires is that humans never create anything. Our function is not to create, but to attract, combine, and distribute what already exists. Creations are really new combinations of already existing materials. There is one indispensable condition for the manifestation of your mental picture into the visible and concrete world: the necessity of picturing the fulfillment of your desire as if it is already accomplished on the spiritual plane. That's right. You must know within yourself that on the invisible level of your being, what you desire is already in place. You impress upon the universal mind the object of your desire, and you calmly and knowingly proceed to act upon that picture, allowing the greater intelligence and your own, which is a part of that greater intelligence, to work through you to produce the results. You abandon all fear and return to the affairs of your life, assured that the necessary conditions will soon come into view or are already there. The key is to repeat the mental pictures until the truth of what you are affirming resonates within you without an ounce of doubt. If your picture doesn't manifest in the time span that you've designated, relax and retreat to your knowing that it is already in place in the spiritual realm. Time is simply not a recognizing feature of the all-creating wisdom. However, you will find it impossible to manifest if you are visualizing without an authentic will that is sufficiently steady to overcome any contrary idea or lack of faith in your own divine connection to God.
You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. This really means that you are eternal, that your essence of who you are is something that can never be taken away. Your life here is a parenthesis in eternity. It opens parentheses at a given moment, called your conception. It closes parentheses at the instant of your death, and it's surrounded by eternity. You are that eternal being. Keep this in mind. It's a very, very important idea. You're not a human being having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. What you think about expands. If your thoughts are centered on what's missing, then what's missing, by definition, will have to expand. Nothing you imagine in your mind is impossible. Perhaps you'll be surprised to learn that there's no such thing as a nervous breakdown. Nerves don't break down. People choose to break down. Having a plan is not necessarily unhealthy, but falling in love with the plan is a real neurosis. Don't let your plan become bigger than you are. Planning for the future, having goals, looking towards a better life, these are all terrific. But remember that life is really what happens to you while you're making other plans. Enjoy today. Have your plans, but don't fall in love with the plan. Let that plan be something that is adjustable and that can shift at any moment. We can only give away to others what we have inside ourselves. We can only give away to others what we have inside ourselves. And the corollary of that is, we can't give away what we don't have. If you have love inside of you, love for yourself, then that's what you'll give away. If you have contempt inside of you, contempt for yourself, then that's what you'll give away. Be willing to let anything happen. willingness is such an important commodity in our lives. Just be willing. Forgiveness is an act of self-love. Forgiveness is an act of self-love. You know, no one has ever died from a snake bite. Snakes bite. What kills people from a snake bite is not the bite, but the venom that continues to pour through the system long after the bite. You can't be unbitten, but you don't have to choose to have venom flowing through you. When you rid yourself of the venom and forgive, you're truly acting as a loving soul. If you step back far enough, it is easy to see humanity as one. Remember, this is a universe. Una, one. Verse, song. Universe, one song. Step back and see us all as one. All of your behavior results from the thoughts that precede it. It is much easier not to smoke or eat chocolate than to do so. It is your mind that convinces you otherwise. It really is easier to not smoke or to not be addictive. Easier. If you're going to smoke, or if you're going to be overweight, you have to do an awful lot of things. You have to go out to the store, you have to buy cigarettes, you have to take the cigarette package out of your pocket, you have to unwrap it, you have to carry fire in your pocket, you have to constantly be replacing them, you have to spend your money. There's a lot of things that you have to do if you're going to smoke. If you're not going to smoke, all you have to do is not smoke. So don't fool yourself and convince yourself that it's easier to smoke. It's much easier not to. Anything you must have comes to own you. Ironically, when you release it, you start getting more of it.
American poet, essayist, and philosopher known for challenging traditional thought, Emerson's philosophy is characterized by its reliance on intuition as the way to comprehend reality. Listen to this excerpt from Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. These are the voices which we hear in solitude, but they grow faint and inaudible as we enter into the world. Society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. Society is a joint stock company in which the members agree, for the better securing of his bread, to each shareholder, to surrender the liberty and culture of the eater. The virtue in most request is conformity. Self-reliance is its aversion. It loves not realities and creators, but names and customs. Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. He who would gather immortal palms must not be hindered by the name of goodness, but must explore if it be goodness. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. The ideas of this one essay, Self-Reliance, have influenced all of my writing, and I consider Emerson to be one of my greatest teachers, even though he passed on well over a century ago. Ralph Waldo Emerson was known as much for his essays as his poetry. In perhaps his best-known and most frequently quoted essay titled Self-Reliance, this provocative American author, known as the father of the Transcendentalist movement, outlined in depth the basic tenets of what it means to be your own person. I can still remember the impact this essay, Self-Reliance, and its contemporary Henry David Thoreau's essay on the necessity of civil disobedience had on me when I was a 17-year-old high school student. In this brief excerpt, Emerson speaks to the necessity of being a nonconformist in order to be fully alive, and of the need to resist enculturation. Society demands conformity at the expense of individual liberty, he asserts, which is to say that it demands that you fit in or be an outcast. Emerson insists on the integrity of the individual mind, maintaining that it is essentially sacred. Now remember that Emerson was also a minister who is informing us that the mind is what is sacred, not the rules, not the laws, not the societal mores, but your mind. Further on in Self-Reliance, Emerson declares, "No law can be sacred to me but that of my nature." This profoundly courageous statement is from a fearless man who knew that divinity and sacredness are not in the institutions of the church but in the minds of individuals. Our conduct makes us divine creatures, not our memberships. How we use our minds as free-thinking people is what makes us sacred, not how well we cite the laws to protect our malice or vanity. When you stop to consider most of the evils that have been perpetrated on humanity, they have virtually all been accomplished under the protective custody of society's laws. Socrates was murdered because the law said it was proper to dispose of intellectual dissidents. St. Joan was burned at the stake because it was the law. All of the male babies in an entire country were systematically murdered because it was the rule. When my own mother was born, 1/2 of the population, that is 100% of the women, could not vote in America because the rules said so. At the time I was born, millions of people were being herded into death camps and all of their possessions confiscated because of inhumane laws. It was the law that required black people to sit in the rear of buses, drink at separate drinking fountains, and live lives of separate and inferior opportunity. So please don't cite the laws and rules of society to justify your actions. People who truly understand what is meant by self-reliance know they must live their lives by ethics rather than rules. It is possible to find some obscure law or rule or societal tradition to justify virtually anything. Those who do not give priority to the integrity of their own mind will indeed cite laws to explain why they do what they do. Aspiring to be a more sacred being means shedding your reliance on conformity. Emerson went on further in this provocative essay to say, "I am ashamed to think how easily we capitulate to badges and names, to large societies and dead institutions." He spoke openly of the long-held but immoral institution of slavery, which was protected by law. "I ought to go upright and vital and speak the rude truth in all ways. If malice and vanity wear the coat of philanthropy, shall that pass?" Recall, if you will, that Emerson was speaking and writing like this while slavery was legal and protected by society. What does this essay on self-reliance say to us today? It encourages us to cultivate ethics rather than rules or laws as the governing inner light for ourselves. If we know it is right, it will be in harmony with spiritual principles, many of which have been spoken about in this collection. Not thinking like the herd or citing its rules as your rationale for your own inner truth. Emerson does not ask you to deliberately disobey any law, rather to use your own sense of ethics in running your life. He makes it clear, to be a man or a woman, you must be a nonconformist. I suggest that the best way to employ this profound truth from Emerson is to learn how to be quietly effective in your own life. That is, have no need to make public pronouncements about how you refuse to conform, and instead take solace in the comfort of your own inner strength, and proceed as a silent individual who knows how to rely on yourself. I've written 42 books. I've been doing it since I was 15 years old. I wrote a novel when I was just in high school called The Anomalous Compatriot, which was horrible. Never published, but a part of what I can see clearly now is a reflection of that. If you want to be a writer, it's something that's in your soul. I call it writing from the soul, listening to that thing inside of you. In fact, the very last paragraph of this book says, "In order to access guidance, I encourage you to make a commitment to be absolutely faithful to that which exists nowhere else but within yourself. This is the great secret for seeing ever more clearly and living your life from a place of passion and purpose. That there is a place that exists only within you, and to be faithful to that." So I have been doing that since I was 15 years of age, and been writing and writing and writing and taking on the task of writing. I write by hand. I don't use a machine. I put the pad of paper here, I put my left hand on the table, and with my purple pen I write, and I allow for me it's like a circuit, and I allow it to flow through my heart and onto the page. And very often it takes 600, 700, 800 individual pages that you have to fill from in here or from out there, and you just have, you're really like a channel. Very much like what's happening right now. Even these words that are coming out of my mouth, I don't own them. I don't even know where they're coming from. But I just listen, and I just allow it, and then I'm done with it. I give it to my editor, who incarnated here to be an editor. And I came here to be a writer and a speaker. And it's what my heart tells me to do. It's why I'm here this morning. So the idea of sitting down and writing another book it bears heavy on my soul. It's just exhausting. And it requires an enormous amount of discipline to sit there day in and day out. Because every book of every word that I've written in every book is something that has all come from me. I don't have anybody else to co-author with. I don't have anybody else that I assign to write it for me. It's all something that I take very personally and it's very important and significant to me. But it's also just so exhausting, and it just takes so much. And I was 72 years old then, and I just said, that's enough. And I told everybody, I'm not going to write any more books. I'm just done with that. And so I'm going to use my time to do some other things, which I'm really excited about. Some films, and other projects that I don't even want to talk about yet. So that was the 26th of June. On the morning of the 27th of June, I started writing I Can See Clearly Now. And I wrote, and I wrote, I wrote and wrote. I wrote every single day. Now the children were all there. They're filling up my space there. In fact, they filled that up so much, we were all going to just kind of gather together because it's summertime, and you can sleep on air mattresses and sleep on the couches and so on, and just everybody's just all there, and it's just a great time for everybody to be together. I had to go out and actually rent a place in order to have the privacy to do the writing that was just so filling my soul. It was so significant that in one moment I had shifted away from, and I thought that I was in charge of this. 11 or 12 years ago, I was in New York City, and I was being interviewed by the New York Times, and also there was a man who was also being interviewed by the New York Times. His name is Arthur Miller, the great American playwright. So he was asked the question, as I was sitting there waiting, he was asked the question, are you working on another play? Now at that time, Arthur Miller was 91 years old. So when the interviewer said, are you working on another play? His response was something that I've never forgotten. He said, I don't know, but I probably am. And that just resonated so deeply within me that there is something invisible that is directing this play that we call our life. And our human personality isn't the thing that's in charge of it at all. And when you begin to surrender to that, and when you begin to understand that, and when you begin to live from that place where you're surrendering to it and just allowing.
Don't believe everything you think, because most of the stuff that you think just simply doesn't hold up. And then I created this paradigm for changing it, and we put it to work. And I had a woman at a workshop I do here on Maui every October, this 3-day workshop with myself and Ram Dass. And this woman had been binging and purging for 22 years. Every single day she was close to death. She could barely walk into the room. She looked so bad. And in less than an hour, we were able to look at the perceptions and the beliefs that she had about why this was going on and what it would take for her to change. And it's now 19 months later, and she still hasn't done it once. And we made this shift and turnaround in a very, very quick amount of time.
So the idea that it's going to take a long time and it's going to be a difficult process and I don't have the ability to do it, these are just memes. Almost everything that we look at in our life is memes. Virtually everything about religion is a meme.
What finally turned her around, though? I mean, she must have, through your help, of course, but she must have said to herself, I'm tired of the way I've been living.
Yeah, I think that's what probably got her here to Maui. But you know what, George, the thing that turned her around, because I'll never forget it, she just looked up and realized that the idea that she couldn't change was no longer something that she could validate. It wasn't true. I kept saying to her, can you be 100% certain that it's going to be impossible for you to change? And she said, and I said, 100%. That means there's absolutely no possibility that you could change. She said, well, there might be some possibility. I said, so okay, let that thought in. There is some possibility that you might be able to change. And I said, now what's the reverse of it's going to be very difficult and take a long time? And the reverse of that is it's going to be easy and I can do it. I said, now you can't be 100% certain that it's true with either one of those thoughts. But one of those thoughts is going to give you an opportunity to get to where you would like to be. The other thought guarantees that you'll never be able to do it. Why would you continue to pick on that first thought when the second thought, and you're in charge of whatever thought goes into your mind. And that moment of realization that I have within me the ability to perceive what I have been experiencing, and I see this with addictions, I see this with people who've been overweight, I see it with people who've been poor all of their life, and I see it with people who've been in lousy relationships all of their life. They have got to look at the thought systems, that most of which are not true, that don't support them, and then begin to pick thoughts that may or may not be true, but at least will offer you an opportunity to get where you want to be.
You can create the life you desire by concentrating on what you wish to attract. Once you master the ideas surrounding this concept, you won't want to use your mind for the purpose of excuse-making. Instead, you'll prefer to use it to really consider what you want to manifest into your life and then visualize it as coming true. Excuses you tend to rely on probably include some ideas that you've contemplated throughout your life to date. Yes, even thinking it will be difficult, or I can't afford it, or I don't deserve it, is engaging in what Aristotle called the highest form of activity. The more you ponder the impossibility of having your desires show up, complain about life's unfairness, and get upset about what continues to manifest, the more those very things define your reality. That's because whatever you focus on invariably shows up in your life, be it what you want or what you don't want. So if you're always thinking or talking about what's wrong with your life, then you're attracting exactly what you don't desire.
We're afraid to be God. We're afraid to have God within us. We're afraid to be our own creator of what we want for ourselves. Instead, we want it to be something outside of us. We want someone else to do it for us, like God or like Mother, the way she used to be, or whatever it will be. And until you're willing to be God, that is, within you, allow yourself to be that moral, effective human being who is doing the things that are going to make life better for you and everybody else. Until you're willing to do that yourself, all it is hoping that somebody else will do it. And the place at the top, which is way, way up there at the ceiling, is what I call mastery. Where you are to your own life, like a great painter is to his or her creation, molding it and shaping it, reacting, having self-creation, being into the person that you want to be, and being able to react and handle every situation that comes along, and understanding that happiness is not something that you strive for, that you go after, that it is something that is always within you, and you can have it anytime, anything that you're doing. Not very many people get a hold of that. They think there are happy things to do and unhappy things to do. Happiness is available for you anytime you want it, whether you're cleaning out your closet, whether you're sitting on the can, whether you're changing your baby's diaper, whether you're working on a project that is exciting for you, whether you're going on a camping trip, whatever it is that you're doing, that happiness is something that's available to you. Normal people don't speak the kind of language I'm talking transcendent kind of language, that when you're around these kind of people, they inspire you, even if they're not even trying to convince you of anything. They have an aura almost about them that you know you're around a special human being. It's like their presence motivates because they transcend the typical. They transcend the normal and go into areas that no one ever dreamt of before and don't even think about the consequences of whether it's going to work or not work. That isn't even an issue for them. understanding that if you're going to get things done in life, you've got to be able to transcend all of the reasons why it can't be done.
And one of the people, of course, that was very profoundly important in my life was Jesus of Nazareth. Now, you can look through the New Testament and you can find a million different quotations of Jesus. And I picked one to write this essay about. And it was called About Being Childlike. He said, "Except as ye become converted and become a child, ye shall not enter the kingdom of heaven." Now, what does it mean to be childlike? I have 8 children, and I have watched them as they have come into this world. And they come into this world with personalities. Some of them come in smiling, and some of them in crying. Some sleep all night right away, and some don't sleep all night for 2 years. They all come from this place called nowhere, and they enter this place called now here. So we go from nowhere, N-O-W-H-E-R-E, to now here, N-O-W-H-E-R-E. It's all the same, just a question of spacing. You get into now here, and we're all going back to nowhere. So our life is sort of like a parenthesis in eternity. And what Jesus was speaking about here is to go back to that place where you have this great sense of awe, where you have this great sense of mystery. And more important, you don't have any anger in you towards the world. You don't look at other people and their conduct or the way they appear and say that I don't like them. You have to be carefully taught all of these things. As a child, you are the person who is laughing and full of joy. For me, the most treasured moments of my life, many people say, well, you spent years in foster homes. Wasn't that a great difficulty and a great struggle? I always say, no, it wasn't a great struggle. When you're a child, you don't wake up every day and say, oh my God, I'm an orphan again today. Poor me. Why did this happen to me? This isn't fair. What you do is you get up and you enjoy your life and you get on with it and you do everything that a 6-year-old child will do. And then you turn 40. It seems like it happens overnight. And then all of a sudden things aren't going as well as you thought they should. And you're addicted to this substance or that, or you're overweight, or your business is failing, or you're going through your 3rd marriage, or any number of things that you would say constitute, failures in your life, if you will. And all of a sudden, you start saying to yourself, why did this happen? And you say, well, what do you expect from me? I was an orphan. And you go back and you relive and look into all of these things that when you were a child, you just ignored. You didn't even pay attention to. And now that you become an adult, you've got something to use as an excuse for why your life isn't working the way you would like it to work. When you're childlike, you don't have excuses. You don't blame. You don't find fault. You don't judge. You simply love. And this is what Jesus meant when he said, become a child. Otherwise, you won't enter the kingdom of heaven. Have an absence of judgment, and you'll find yourself fulfilled every moment of your life.
Italian painter, sculptor, architect, musician, engineer, mathematician, and scientist, Leonardo da Vinci was one of the greatest intellects in the history of mankind. He had this to say about balance. Every now and then go away. Have a little relaxation. For when you come back to your work, your judgment will be surer, since to remain constantly at work will cause you to lose power of judgment. Go some distance away because the work appears smaller and more of it can be taken in at a glance, and a lack of harmony or proportion is more readily seen. When a man such as Leonardo da Vinci gives advice, I, for one, am willing to listen with fixed attention. It seems to me that highly productive people have a great sense of balance and harmony in their lives. They are thoroughly familiar with pacing and knowing when to retreat and clear their heads of the immediate concerns. The key word here is balance. To avoid being consumed by anything, you must be able to walk away from it. In the process of walking away, you begin to see your work or your family or your project from a perspective that appears smaller, according to Leonardo. The great Renaissance master is telling us to let go. Relax, don't try so hard, remove the struggle and allow our natural divine guidance to assist us. He says, have a little relaxation, for when you come back to your work, your judgment will be surer. One way to do this in today's world is to learn to meditate before you undertake any serious pursuit, be it a plan for a business meeting, a job interview, giving a lecture, or painting a portrait. The very act of allowing yourself to go into a meditative state will improve your efficiency enormously. In the past 10 years, I have never gone before an audience without first spending a minimum of an hour, usually more, alone in a state of meditation.
What I find in that state, particularly when I emerge from my relaxing meditation, is that I can walk out on the stage or pick up my pen with a sense of confidence that I am connected to a higher part of myself that knows no fear. I become an observer of myself doing the work, and everything seems to flow as if the hand of God is guiding my tongue or my pen. In the process of getting some distance between yourself and your work and relaxing into that space, you are inviting divine intervention into your activity. The less stress you place on yourself to accomplish or complete ironically seems to give you the power to do just that. Balance is what Leonardo da Vinci encouraged us to have in our life, regardless of our pursuits. By all means, get involved in your activities, but try to enjoy them for what they are, rather than the final outcome.